As many of you already know, I didn't start running until I was 40 years old. It's been 10 years, and my enthusiasm for the sport has really only grown. That's why I started this YouTube channel. I began doing interviews with other runners so that they could pass on their knowledge and their enthusiasm to help you pursue your goals. My guest today is Willimon. He's a great guy, a great runner. He's got lots of knowledge to share, so let's go. I'm pleased to be joined this evening by a runner with a very impressive running resume and a good guy to boot. So I'm hoping you find his story informational and very motivational. So without further ado, everyone, please welcome with me Willimon.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Hey, Chaz, thank you very much for being here. I think this is going to be a great interview. Before we jump into the details of running, I'm hoping that you can share your age, your occupation, and where you're from.
Yeah, so I'm 39 years old. I'm a school teacher. I've been teaching in Kannapolis, North Carolina for the past 15 years or so. I grew up in St. Louis, lived a lot of places before then. I was a Navy brat, but yeah, I guess I've kind of made the Carolinas my home, the Charlotte area my home for the past 20 years or so.
Oh, okay. Wow. So you got here probably around the same time I did. I arrived down here around 2001, summer of 2001.
Yeah, I was in college then at Davidson, actually. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
That would have been, right before my senior year, I guess.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, even by the shirt you're wearing, I always associate you with the Davidson area, but I wasn't aware that you were a student there as well.
Yeah. That's kind of how I met a lot of the local people. Not through running. I was not a runner in college. That was kind of a second act of life.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that we had quite so much in common when it came to the even when we started running, that it was a later in life thing. But wow, that's very cool. You kind of already alluded to this, but what's your athletic background? And go back as far as you think is relevant.
Well, it has been kind of a roller coaster as far as that. I wasn't really all that athletic as a kid. I loved playing baseball and all that, riding my bike like we all did before there was the internet. But I guess I really started getting fit in high school, and that was mainly because I was studying and teaching various martial arts there, and that was kind of my thing. After high school, got to college and got interested in other things, girls, playing music, all that. So a little bit less of the martial arts, a little bit more of the living the college experience. My 20s were probably the least fit part of my life. I kind of ballooned up and became half again the man I was. It wasn't until really probably about 30 years old, 29 or 30 years old, that I got into running by accident and dropped 70 pounds and stopped smoking a pack a day.
Wow, what a turnaround.
Yeah. So,
well, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
And then 10 years ago, you picked up.
Oh, actually, it was even sooner than that. I would say I started getting the weight off not long after I started running. I guess I was kind of, putting together little 2 and 3 mile runs a couple times a week as I kind of got a mind about myself to get fit. And, that's how I lost most of my weight. And then really about 10 or 11 years is where I've kind of been in my current shape, which is kind of back to my high school weight.
Okay, gotcha. Wow, good for you. Good for you. So what got you started running? Was it just the fact that you saw it as a way to finish off that weight loss, or were there any other factors?
When I say I got into running by accident, where I was living at the time in Cornelius, there was a private gym that opened up couple blocks from my house, maybe a half mile from my house. And my wife and I, this is before we were married, my fiance and I started going there we both wanted to live a little better. I mean, she was in shape already, but we just kind of wanted to get a little more movement, and it became something of a routine, made it a routine. And it got to where I would kind of jog there. And then that gym closed down.
Okay.
So all I had was kind of, just running around the neighborhood. And then I was like, well, I can just keep doing this. And it became kind of my morning routine. And I thought I was big stuff for running 3 miles a day for 4 or 5 days a week. And
well, hey, coming from especially the background, what we just learned about you, 3 miles is no small task. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, for anyone. And if you're a marathon runner and decide to start racing 5Ks again, you'll realize you remember exactly how long 3 miles really is.
Exactly. So that's what got you started, and I think what you just said is actually really relevant to the present moment for everyone, especially with the COVID-19 thing going around. All the gyms closed down. A lot of people with really no other means of getting exercise, but at least here in North Carolina, we're still able to just walk out the door, lace up some shoes, and you can go around the block. So
Yeah. I mean, as long as everyone's practicing their social distancing and not being irresponsible about it, then we should be able to maintain that and keep that going. And I keep on hearing all the news sources saying, "Oh, there's another running boom," happening.
Yeah, I think this this unfortunate situation is only going to help that. So
yeah. And it's you can't really run with a big group of people like I had gotten used to, but you can maybe meet 1 or 2 people and stay far enough apart as long as you're not crowded on greenways and stuff, and maybe once or twice a week. That's kind of how I get it out. But a lot of it is kind of back to how I started running, which was solitary for the first couple of years. So
yeah, gotcha. Okay, Chaz. So at this point, what motivates you now? What do you find most challenging about running at this point?
Well, I would say for the past quite a few years now, it's not. I've been wanting to keep fit, but it's been less about keeping fit than it has been about performance, about seeing, pushing my goals, pushing my boundaries, and seeing if I can, beat yesterday, I guess is the term that a lot of people throw around. But,
yeah.
I find that, there are still certain performance marks, certain personal bests that I'm beating even as I get close to 40 years old that I never could have done even when I was 20 years old and fairly fit. Or certainly not when I was, in my late 20s and was not fit at all. But now it's more about the adulation of doing something better and faster, or more evenly paced, smarter than I had before. And even if it's just a regular training run that I go out and get my time to myself for, just coming back and having that peace of mind, knowing that that's just, one more in the bank.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I just had a great run today. I went out feeling kind of terrible, but the cloud cover and the cool weather, just something happened. And I knew by like half a mile in, this is going to be a good run. And it just makes your day sometimes. It's just like, you can be having a tough time at work or, family things going on. But yeah, I mean, it can really change your attitude. It keeps you motivated.
Yeah. Even a crappy run kind of leaves you feeling better afterward than you were when you started. So
Absolutely.
I mean, unless you have coronavirus or something.
In which case you better not be out there running.
Yeah.
Cool. So, yeah, tell me if you don't mind, share what your training schedule generally looks like these days. How many days a week do you run?
how many miles a week do you run? Seasonal changes, that kind of thing.
Usually I'm kind of a 6-day-a-week guy. I try and get 1 day of complete rest. This year, my rest days have included a mile or two slow with my dog. I kind of have a streak going for 2020, and that was before COVID-19 came. So I figured I might as well keep it going. But I've been averaging about 70 miles a week for the past year or so. I guess for the past few marathon cycles, I've been trying to keep it above 60.
Gotcha.
Usually one long run, anywhere from 15 to 20 or 22 miles on the weekend. And I'll try and throw in some kind of speed work there on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, intervals usually.
Gotcha.
If depending on the race I'm training for, might be a couple different workout sessions that involve different pace work, and I kind of try and tune that to whatever the distance or whatever the goal is. I write training plans for other athletes on the side too, so
that's interesting.
Yeah, I kind of try and work that around people's schedules, and I've been doing, well, not since COVID-19 started, but I had been doing that so much that my own training plans usually kind of have been afterthoughts after I've kind of put something together for people. It's like, that's a good idea. I might do that myself.
Gotcha. Yeah, you come up with a new realization and just add it to your own training.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. Wow. So like, do you do things like, do you do track workouts like when you're training towards a marathon, or is that something that you only worry about for shorter races?
I do track workouts, pretty much anything, any kind of intervals that are shorter than a mile. I'll usually do on the track. Couple reasons. One, I mean, the Davidson track is so nice. It's got that nice rubberized surface. It's easy on the legs. But yeah. Two, you can really keep track of those splits. I don't use the GPS watch on the track. I mean, I'll be recording my run, but I'll use the track markings because they're never going to change. There's never going to be any GPS errors with the track markings. I know if I'm going to try and hit my 400s in 78, then I know within a second or two how it's going throughout the workout. I can even check it at the 200 mark. But yeah, I'll use the track for the short stuff, and then for more of the threshold stuff, the tempo stuff or tempo intervals, I'll try and get on the roads.
Gotcha. Okay. So that kind of leads me perfectly into my next question. What do you do for cross training?
Well, my friend Sam, who's been running with Dart and running with me for years, he kind of long-term lent me a road bike and has never asked for it back. He's in Australia right now. And
oh, wow.
The understanding is as long as I'm going to ride it, because he's got a couple of bikes anyway. I kind of just use that sometimes just to commute to a run or commute to, or when I go to friends, if I can carry something on a small backpack, then there's no need to drive. I won't say I go out and ride regularly. I did add some riding volume around this time last year when I was training for the one and only duathlon I've ever done.
Oh, wow.
I'll do that as cross training, and I'll do some body weight type strength training as well. Push-ups are my bread and butter.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. Gotcha.
And then anything I can do with a pair of dumbbells that's nice and simple.
That's my favorite too.
I still go to the gym when it's open, so I haven't been in months. But I try at least running. Certainly makes you a stronger person, but you want to keep your muscular strength up too. So I try and stay on top of that.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I'm 11, maybe 12 years older than you. So, once you start getting up there in the age, at least I have begun to notice that without strength training in my life, at minimum of a couple times a week, that things start to go south pretty quick.
Yeah, and that's kind of how you get off the disabled list too. It's like when you when you fall off the wagon with the strength training, that's when all those little nag injuries pop up here and there. And I could still be better about that, you know, those stabilization exercises and those kind of steel you up a little bit. I also get chiropractic adjustments regularly, once a week. One of my running buddies, one of my, you know, more common training partners is also my chiropractor. So,
wow, that's so he always knows what's going on with you then.
He knows what's going on, and we're of similar, you know, performance levels too, depending on if they're on cycle or not. So, you know, we're always kind of driving each other to be a little bit better. I write his training plans, and he keeps me healthy.
Wow, that's great. What a great arrangement.
Yeah.
Do you participate in races? We know you do.
Yeah, I try and run the gamut of distances. I've done everything from, you know, the 1 mile to the 100 mile. I think my wheelhouse, I do like the marathon a lot, but I think my favorite distance to just up and race is somewhere in that, you know, 15K to half marathon range. The 10-mile races, there's something beautiful about that.
Yeah.
It's just really approachable. You can go at it with a real performance mindset, set a really tough goal and train for it. But you know, I guess it depends on how fast you run it. You know, you're just going to be out there an hour, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
You'll be spending, you know, nearly 3 hours on foot and having to hammer the whole time.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny because you know, my experience, I when I started racing, I started with a half marathon, which, as a side note to everybody, was the Run for Green half marathon in Davidson, North Carolina. And
what a one to start on.
Oh, I know. I didn't even know how tough it was going to be until we got started. But you were one of the pacers at that race. So the very first time I ever physically met you, I shook your hand when we were all lining up at the start line, and I was like, okay, what pace are you, you know, what are you pacing for? And I just kind of jumped in front of you, and I just said to myself, okay, I'm doing well if I never see Chaz again.
A lot of people say that, Paul, but they're not talking about running.
I doubt that. You're a great guy. I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, but do you have any PRs that you'd like to share with people?
Yeah, I guess. So marathon, my current PR is 2:54. It's kind of a 2:54 mid. I did that in Richmond in, I think it was 2018. And I came close to it, or within about a minute or so, at Charlotte last year on that hilly, that windy day. But
that's impressive. Between the wind and I know that course is not exactly a flat speed course. So wow.
Yeah, I was. I thought I was going to be in pretty good shape for a 2:50. Had Shamrock Marathon gone on, but I kind of got my head right to it being canceled before it actually got canceled. So just trying to keep my fitness at that level right now. Probably one of my best races has been the Brooklyn Half Marathon, which is about a year. I think it's a year ago today.
Wow.
Or close to it. Now 119 high. I thought I had a 121, maybe 120 in me, but you know,
wow. So you had a great day then.
Had a good day. It has a good course too. It really, it's built for a good negative split on the back end. My best 15K I actually did last week as a time trial, so I don't know whether you'd count it or not. But that was the longest I had ever gone at a sub 6 minute pace, was 55:47. I thought I could do a sub 57. I hadn't done that in a standalone 15K yet, but I just found a nice flat bit of road. It was a windy day, but luckily, you know, I turned around halfway through.
Got it. Gotcha.
Yeah, and
great numbers there. Wow.
Yeah, I've gotten a few 10Ks into 36s. I would really love to get a sub 5 mile in. The closest I've gotten is 5:07. Well, the Charlotte mile gave me a 5:05, but
Wow.
I think it kind of gave me a little more benefit. I had 5:07 on my watch. I think the scanner might have read me a little bit early.
I gotcha.
Done 5:07 on the tracks.
Either way, that's an impressive number.
Yeah. So I'd like to get that down below 5, but those last seconds come off. That's kind of pain at a cellular level there.
Oh God, I swear, I've believe it or not, I've only run one 5K in my life so far. Hopefully the opportunity will arise soon, but yeah, there's something, just even 5, I can't imagine a shorter race than a 5K, because a 5K is it just hurts.
Yeah, it hurts, but I'll tell you what, after racing a mile, you really appreciate a 5K and how much strategy and how much pacing there is in it. Even when you're training for something like a marathon, finding a good 5K, something that's really course specific, I think there's a lot of benefit to it. I think a lot of marathoners or long distance runners kind of write off the 5K and they say, "Oh, it hurts," or "It's too short." But there's a lot of there's a lot of nobility to that distance, I think.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny because a lot of people talk about, if you are a middle distance runner, like a 5K, 10K specialist, you hear a lot of talk about, well, up your weekly mileage, you get up into the 70s, 80s, 90s, and you're going to see your times come down. But I think what you just said is really eye-opening, because kind of the way I took what you said is, get out there, even if you are like a half marathoner and a marathoner, and run those shorter races, because I think the strength that you gain from pushing that hard is really actually going to help you out a lot in those longer distances, which is where I started out in the half. And then I spent a long time on fulls, like running nothing but fulls for a good 4 or 5 years before I decided, hey, you know what? 5Ks and 10Ks exist, so let me give them a shot. So.
Yeah. I mean, if you're feeling really good, the beginning of a 5K should feel like marathon pace. And then the end of a marathon should feel like a 5K.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Cool. So I think we've touched on this a little bit, but what are your future racing goals, and in the bigger picture, what are your future running goals?
So I'd like to get that 250, which is huge, because I'm sure you and I have talked about this before. Up until just a few years ago, I never thought I would be able to run sub 3. But that 250 seems very plausible, and all of my fitness, all of my indicator workouts, a lot of my other race results seem like that's one of those goals that's just on that edge of my fitness, where if I have a day, I'm going to get it. That sub 5 is another white way on that one. I think is going to be a little bit harder to achieve. But I'm signed up for Chicago and for New York. I've already done New York. I've done Boston. I'd like to do the majors. I haven't done Chicago yet. I'm hoping it goes on, and if it doesn't, then I'll do it the following year.
Wow. Yeah, that's great to hear. I may very well see you there, because I missed my chance. By the time I woke up to the possibility of Chicago, I missed the window for application. So I will be there in hopefully 2021. I'm hoping 2021.
Yeah. So they sent out an email giving us the option of deferring, and I'm going to have to look at the writing on the wall, and if it looks like it's going to go that way, and then that might be something where I take the option before the option is taken away. But I'd like to do the majors, and I'm sure my wife said that if it would get her a trip to Tokyo, then I could run Tokyo.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm sure similar would go for Berlin and London, but those are long-term goals, because I'm still a school teacher right now.
Gotcha.
I've done the ultra thing, and I'm not interested in doing that again anytime soon.
Brilliant. And I'm going kind of off script here, but tell me a little bit more about that. What was your experience with ultras like, and why do you say what you just said?
So being in a running group, you kind of get your arm twisted with the peer pressure. And in Davidson, there, I think, is a pretty high per capita number of ultra runners. People, especially people who run 100-milers. There's probably a dozen people in the small town of Davidson with 100-mile belt buckles, or multiple of them. So, I had signed up for my first 50K before I had ever even run my first marathon, and ended up doing it 4 weeks after my first marathon. And
that's not a recipe for speed, I don't think.
No, it wasn't. And I wasn't even worried about being a fast marathoner or a fast ultra runner at that point. That all kind of came with, the fitness kind of came later. I had a couple of podium finishes at a couple of ultras. And that was nice, but it was a different crowd, a crowd I really liked. It was very, you hear it, it's the stereotype is really true that the ultra crowd is a lot more laid back. You can get your competitive guys there, but people are going to be out there to get to know you. At the aid station, they're going to want to talk to you. They're going to want to feed you real food, not just pass you the Gatorade and, watch you waterboard yourself as you're trying to keep a, pace. But I appreciate that about the ultra running community and the trail running community altogether. I did 100-miler. I did Umstead, which if you're going to do one, then that's a good first one or only one to do, because that's probably the most supported 100-miler out there. And you will know then whether you want to do 100-milers again or whether But I got my buckle and said, all right, that's enough of that. It did take some time to get some speed back after that, though.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, I mean, that's what you call jumping into the deep end. I mean, I've been thinking about, my plan has been, when I finally am convinced that I've tipped over the edge of being able to PR anymore, because I'm getting at the age where it could happen anytime. That's when I want to start. That's when I'll jump into like my first 50K, something that's just gently longer than what a marathon is, and then see if I even want to continue down that road.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, when you are a marathoner who has done 50Ks and kind of know how to pace a little bit differently, it's interesting to spot the people who are marathoners who are trying to run it like a marathon. Of course, you run a marathon and you're at the edge of your fitness, during the last 2 or 3 miles, you're feeling pretty rough. You could bonk at 20 miles and you could still, make it in. You could survive for the next 30 or 40 minutes. You bonk at that same place in a 50K, you got 11 miles to go.
Yeah, it's like bonking at mile 16 of a marathon. Yeah.
Yeah, which I've done. I've done that too, and
yeah, me as well. Yeah, I've been through by mile 11 of a marathon before.
Yeah. In fact, that was Boston for me in 2016. I finished it, but I was stupid running through Wellesley, and then Newton got me. So.
Oh wow.
I knew it was going to be a bad day in Wellesley, and then 16 is about where I not really threw in the towel, but decided to just jog it on in.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, everybody has those days, though.
Yeah.
The way I see, I don't know what you had in mind for that day, but I see Boston more as like icing on the cake, just a celebration of having earned it, I think.
Yeah, and that's a better attitude to take going into it than halfway through it.
True enough. Cool. So, all right, yeah, we took quite a little side journey there, but I really appreciate it. I think there are a lot of people that are really going to enjoy that. How has running changed your life? I know that's a big open-ended question, but tackle it any way you want
Well, it's made things seem more achievable. I guess that's one general answer. You know, it's you learn how to cope. You learn how to. I mean, I'm listening to. I'm listening to a book by Matt Fitzgerald right now called "How Bad Do You Want It?" I recommend it to anyone because it's really about the psychobiological aspect of running. You could call it something as simple as mind over matter, but it's really, he talks about coping.
Okay.
And how you're not really so much dealing with the pain of injury or the pain of imminent danger or bodily harm when you're dealing with the discomfort of running. You're dealing with the discomfort of effort, and it's about how much of that you can cope with, how much you can kind of conquer, because once you finish that rate, that discomfort is gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But those coping mechanisms Fitzgerald talks about, they spill over into your everyday life as well, or vice versa. If for better or worse, whether you have good coping mechanisms or bad coping mechanisms, they spill from your regular life into your running as well. He mentions Louis Zamperini, and how his coping could easily explain how he survived 47 days at sea after his plane crashed in the Pacific, and then 2 years of torture in a Japanese POW camp, and all that. I digress. But you learn how to cope with things. You learn how to take things in their stead. It brings also a lot of what I would call it balance. Some might call it imbalance. My day starts right when I get out there and get my running done. I'm not as anxious. I'm more relaxed. I've already started the day with a victory. Now, when I say imbalance, sometimes it has a tendency to take a little too much of a priority. It takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of time. And certainly when I was doing a lot more ultras, it took a lot of that. And you give up a lot more of your non-running life when you make that kind of commitment. And to not only yours, but that part belonging to those that you love as well. So
yeah, it's a tough balance.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to take us on a little bit of a left turn here, because with you as the guest, we've got a little bit more of a unique perspective beyond just being a runner, because you are also a community running team organizer. And I'm just very curious about how you got started with that.
Well, I wasn't really the one who got it started. I wouldn't really call myself the catalyst. It was kind of like I found a group of people. DART was established before I was there. It was a little bit smaller, but I kind of found those people, and I had been running solitary, and then discovered, hey, it's really nice to run with people. Eventually, I kind of just ended up spending more and more of my time with that group, and kind of became an admin. Like I'm an admin on the Facebook group, and now I'm kind of one of the people who helps put together group runs, who helps welcome new people to the area, or if people are looking for, I'm looking for this kind of, I have this kind of fitness goal, or I'm looking for people who run this pace, or do you know anyone who is looking to do this? Then I kind of take it upon myself to help connect the dots. But it's me and a half dozen other people who kind of just let me be one of their voices. So yeah, I think it's just that I fell in with a good group and decided to share a little more of myself with it. And then people start kind of, listening to that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. And the reason I wanted to bring this up when we decided that we were going to do this interview is because the Davidson area running team, which is DART, which is what you're wearing across your chest, just to let everybody know, is what I've found is really one of the most active, one of the most well-attended groups that I've found anywhere. I think it really speaks not only to how good the people who join in are, but I think it speaks very well of the organization and the abilities that you bring to that group. So let me just say, even though I don't participate a lot, I live like 6-7 miles to the north of Davidson, and I'm kind of out of the loop most of the time physically, but I do keep an eye on things down there, and you're doing a great job down there. I mean, it just always seems so warm and inviting, and I think it's really helping a lot of people out.
Well, that's the goal. Warm and inviting is the goal. Inclusive is the goal. Not everyone wants to go out and smash their PR in the next race. Mm-hmm. Some people just want to have a coffee or have a beer, and maybe there's running involved.
Yeah.
Or some people just, they like their running, but they want to do it at a 12-minute pace or a 15-minute pace, and they want to throw some walk breaks in and not feel like they're holding anyone up. And so the goal, and sometimes the challenge, is offering that for everyone. And that is an enduring goal. And a lot of people, the other admins, that's usually what we end up talking about, is how we can be more inclusive.
Gotcha. So I mean, it's a front of mind kind of thing for you guys.
Yeah, really maintain a wide cross section, so that it's not like so there's no intimidation.
That's the big thing.
We're all going out to the track and banging out 400s, 3 times a week. That's what you do in high school. Well, I don't know. Yeah. I didn't run in high school, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I did cross country in grade 9 and very quickly dropped things afterwards.
Yeah, I did the same thing in grade 9 for one season. It was just to get in shape for wrestling. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so as far as the running group thing goes, I just wanted to touch on not just how it's affected your running group, but also yourself. When it comes to COVID-19, how have you been coping?
Well, I really kind of getting used to those solitary runs again. It is, I would never call it a blessing in disguise. I am lucky to have spent a lot of my personal running time in the past alone, so that I don't really have to adjust as much. I miss my friends. I miss my running buddies. And we communicate on Facebook and everything too. But it's more like not really lamenting that they're gone, but cherishing that time that you also have to yourself.
Yeah.
And then those few times where you are kind of running in the general vicinity of someone else that it's that much nicer, even if you're speaking, having a running conversation while you're both on opposite sides of the street, to maintain distance. But the running group, DART usually, it exists mainly on Facebook. That's just kind of the easiest social network to use. People still post. We're not posting group runs anymore, and we kind of said, hey, it's probably the responsible thing to do is not post group runs. But people still post, hey, this was a breakthrough for me today, or does anyone else know a good place to run this, or how can I avoid all the people on the greenway? So it's kind of a forum where people still reach out and communicate, and it's still kind of a group from afar. Again, I don't want to use the word lucky, but we are fortunate enough to have this happen in a time where we can all communicate virtually.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you were trying to form a running group during the Spanish flu in 1918, then, yeah, well, for many reasons that would have been far worse.
I'd like to get your perspective, your advice for other runners. We could talk about advice for more advanced runners, but I think we'd probably be doing more benefit for more people if we talked about people who are just getting started.
Yeah, well, a lot of that advice would kind of be similar, I would think. Start slow, and I don't necessarily mean the pace, although probably start slow there too. What got me into really enjoying it was doing it on my own terms. It was really more of a run walk sort of thing, and it was running alone for a couple years. I had no one to really compare myself to, because comparison, or even on things like Strava, can often be a double-edged sword. The people around you can drive you to be better, but then you can also get FOMO, fear of missing out, and push yourself too far. So yeah, start slow, listen to your body. You'll eventually become educated and know the difference between the discomfort of effort and the pain of something that's actually wrong.
Yeah.
Learn to listen to that. One thing I did, and it's kind of true of things beyond running, is become a student of the sport, become a student of the practice. Read on the subject, and you are arming yourself even when you're not training. Like even now, I'm reading Emil Petrick's biography, right, and it just kind of be a lifelong learner. Never assume that you're the one with all the knowledge, even if you are a coach, or even if you're writing training plans for people. Just kind of keep an open mind, read, listen to your body, and think about why you're doing it. If it's to be healthier, great, that's all you need. If it's to have fun, if it's to be social, great, that's all you need. If it's becoming something more than that, and then back off, and you'll come back to it. I mean, I back off it plenty. Sometimes due to injury, sometimes due to burnout.
See, that's the big thing with me. I've been there a few times over. I've been running now for 9, coming on 10 years now, and there have been times where I thought I was walking away, but within a couple of weeks, I was like, "What, am I crazy? I love this thing." I'm gonna keep on running. Mm-hmm. I was just in too deep for just a little while. Yeah, and I mean that's something that beginners and advanced runners should be aware of. It's easy to go down the rabbit hole, and you can do harm to yourself, if not physically, then socially, if you let it become, you can joke around and say running is my life, but you should have a life that might include running. Well said. Well said. Well said. Okay, so now for something a little more fun. Do you have any favorite gear, favorite shoes that you'd like to sing the praises of, or encourage other people to try? Well, sure. Anyone who's run with me enough times or has seen my closet knows I have something of a problem when it comes to running shoes. So yeah, there are several favorites I've had over the years, and I almost don't want to mention it because anytime I really like a shoe, it becomes discontinued. I've been there. I do run marathons in the Nike Vaporfly. It's everything everyone says it is. It's amazing. And there are a few other, shoes I like to use for specific purposes. But if I'm going to pick one favorite, a do-it-all shoe that you can go fast, go slow. It's lightweight. It feels good to run in. Skechers Razor 3 is pretty much I'm so happy to see that shoe in your hand.
Yeah, it's kind of a Goldilocks shoe. I mean, I've run marathons in it. I've raced 5Ks in it. I've done long, easy runs. I've done track intervals, and it seems to handle everything. And they keep on coming out with more colors of it. I think they know that they've got a unicorn here, and they're going to try and keep this one going as long as they can.
I'll tell you what, not to get to where we're just kind of singing the praises of a particular company, but I just got my hands on the Horizon Vanish, their little like 5-10K speed shoe.
Yeah.
Wow, that's the first time I've ever owned a Skechers, and it blew my mind. What a shoe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've got it going on, and people when they hear Skechers, you know, they snicker and they think, oh, the shape ups, you know, they think of going to the shoe rack and getting some loafers in wide, you know, but the Skechers Performance Division is coming out with some legit stuff. And speaking of, Anthony Familietti, who is right up near you, he's in Warsaw now.
Yeah.
He signed with them, but
did he really? Wow.
Yeah, just recently, kind of in his, you know, second act.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about him, he and Karen have been extremely supportive of me pretty much ever since I started running with a group and kind of, you know, making myself known to a group. They were kind enough to extend a brand ambassadorship to me, you know, with their performance brand, you know, Reckless Running. So, you know, I've got about 12 Reckless Running singlets that anytime I'm in a race, I'm representing their brand. And it's not only because they've been good to me, but it's good gear. They make it themselves. Fam designs it. Usually Karen fabricates it. So it's not only buying American, it's buying local.
Yeah.
And it's from good people. And
absolutely.
They're always, you want to talk about Dart, they're always doing stuff and reaching out to Dart, to that community within a community as well. And
that's great. Yeah, I'd love to get some more information from you on them, and get that all down in the links below this interview.
Yeah, so recklessrunning.com would be a good link to include. For those of you who don't know Anthony Familietti, he is a 2-time U.S. Olympian steeplechaser in London, and no, not London, in Athens and Beijing, 2004 and 2008. And he's been running professionally for probably 20 years, you know.
Yeah, I think he just recently made it into the Masters division, didn't he? And he's still just blowing minds with the kind of times he's still putting on the board.
Yeah, I did. I mean, doing sub 4 miles on a treadmill.
It's just mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. So let me just ask you, outside of running, do you have any hobbies or interests?
I am a musician. You know, a lot of, I play with a band called the Velcros, kind of in the Newark Mecklenburg area. VEL, and then Crows is in the bird. Kind of a bluegrass jam band, classic rock, you know, Grateful Dead, Johnny Cash, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow, cool stuff.
With the originals. And I do some solo stuff too, here and there, whenever I get the chance. But I have been into music since a lot longer than I've been into running.
Okay.
And so I kind of try and balance those things out whenever I can.
That's a very nice. I'm a musician myself, so I find it's a really nice balance, because running being such a physical, it's a big mental game, but without the physical, the mental game of running doesn't matter. But I find that music is a nice way to kind of slip away into another more peaceful world without the physical challenge.
Well, music is how I met my wife. So
wow.
I have that to thank. And my wife, you could say, is how I got healthy, because she's the one who kind of inspired me to, you know, start working out with her, and, you know, leading to what I was talking about before, and quit smoking and quit and a lot of the other that. So, you know,
it's a great story. I'm so glad that I had you on. I think, as I said at the very beginning of all this, I think I thought to myself before we got started down this road that talking to you is going to be very, not just informational, because you're a font of information when it comes to running, but also very motivational. And everything about this interview has borne that out. I think this was great. I think everybody who makes it through this interview is really going to learn a lot. And hopefully they're lacing up right now to get out there because they feel so great about the idea of running. Thank you, Chaz. Hopefully I will have you on again soon, and we'll catch up on what your latest accomplishments are. But if you don't mind sharing, are there any good ways, social media wise or otherwise, for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So, I mean, you can do a search for me on Facebook and find me. My first name is Chas, Willimon, Willimon. And most people, if they are reaching out for a group run in non-pandemic times, or looking for a training plan or some advice on shoes, because I used to be a running shoe salesman,
Okay.
They'll kind of send me a message on Facebook, and that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. And then I can either respond to that, or we can correspond by email after that.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you for being so open about that kind of stuff. I'm sure there are going to be plenty of comments below this video eventually, and a lot of people with a lot of questions. So thank you again. All the best to you in all your future pursuits. And thank you for being here.
All right, thanks, Paul. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.